Mom Luang Chayotid Kridakon, Advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister Supattanapong Punmeechaow. Mr. Stanley Kang, the Chairman of the BOI-Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Thailand Board of Investment, I would like to extend my warmest welcome to all of you to this meeting hosted in honor of Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand. Before we get started, please allow me to inform you of today's program. We'll start off our meeting with welcoming remarks from Ms. Duangjai Asawachintachit, the Secretary General of Thailand Board of Investment, and welcoming remarks by Mom Luang Chayotid Kridakon, the Advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister Supattanapong. Then, responding remarks from Mr. Stanley Kang, the Chairman of the BOI-Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand. Afterward, we'll have a presentation on BOI policy updates by Madam Secretary General and the PMO team. Afterward, we'll open the floor for discussion and sharing on different topics raised by the Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, please allow me to invite Ms. Duangjai Asawachintachit, the Secretary General of Thailand Board of Investment, for her welcoming remarks. Madam Secretary General, please.
สวัสดีค่ะหม่อมหลวงชโยธิต กฤษฎากร Advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister Supattanapong Punmeechaow, Mr. Stanley Kang, Chairman of BOI-Foreign Chambers of Commerce, Chairman and representatives of Foreign Chambers of Commerce, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is always my great pleasure for the BOI to once again host this consultative meeting with the Foreign Chambers of Commerce. And it has been almost a year since we last met. So this meeting is a bit overdue because we are supposed to meet at least twice a year. But I guess that our excuse is the COVID situation. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the FCCT for the very strong and continued support given to the BOI after all these years. We can always count on the FCCT when needed. I consider this meeting an important event where we can receive useful suggestions or any concerns from important stakeholders like yourselves. Through this kind of meeting, the government can then learn what investors consider important, what matters to you. And these inputs will enable us to improve the country's business ecosystem, to support not only existing investors, but also to attract newcomers. Since our last meeting in December last year, we have been working continuously with relevant agencies to enhance Thailand's competitiveness, particularly to bring about new and necessary changes or improvements. Some actions may take a bit of time to be realized, but we shall keep trying, as it is our ultimate goal to keep Thailand as a preferred investment destination in this region. Although the pandemic is not quite over yet, although the situation has been improving, many countries, including Thailand, has opened up their borders for visitors with a view to resuming normal economic activities. And we are making every effort possible to ensure speedy economic recovery. The BOI has taken quite a number of policy revisions and initiatives, which I will elaborate later on during my presentation on BOI updates. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mom Luang Chayotid for keynote address before we begin our discussion. And thank you once again for your participation, and I very much look forward to a productive discussion as always. Thank you very much. สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary General. First of all, thank you very much for arranging this conference. It gives me great pleasure to meet you today. As an advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister Supattanapong Punmeechaow, I'm tasked with encouraging the foreign direct investment in Thailand. Leading a special task force called Investment Project Management Office Team, or in short, Investment PMO Team, entrusted with garnering inputs from the business communities and coordinating with government agencies, particularly Thailand Board of Investments, helping identifying investment-driven approaches that attracts targeted industries while removing any hindrances to foreign direct investment. I would like to take this opportunity to bring you up to date on the direction of the policy implemented by the Thai government to ensure Thailand's S-curve competitiveness over the long term and the Thai government's upcoming measures aimed at facilitating foreign investors' operation. On policies and implementation, while Thailand is coping with COVID-19 pandemic, with a focus on accelerating vaccination and short-term economic stimulus programs, the Thai government has not lost sight on the most important long-term measures to boost Thailand's S-curve competitiveness. The Thai government is committed to removing the rules and regulations that would unnecessarily hinder the operations of foreign investors in Thailand. Allow me to highlight our actions in some targeted industries. On electric vehicles, as you know, Thailand is a center of production for internal combustion engines. In the light of this rapid increase in the use of electric vehicles worldwide and the international commitment towards sustainable development goals, the Thai government is committed to transforming the country's automotive supply chain to support the electric vehicles and the next generation automotive sectors by facilitating both demand and supply sides. Under the current framework, the Thai government has set a target of at least 30% of all car manufacturers in Thailand, or around 750,000 units being produced will be electrically driven by 2030. On smart electronics, in line with more widespread use of semiconductor-based technology across sectors and increased demands due to COVID-19 pandemic, the Thai government is gearing up investment by recently incentivize the investment through whole stream of smart electronics industry, developing the ecosystem and the skills of human resources, as well as leveraging on the country's solid supply chain in electronics and electrical devices. On the digital development, while the trend of adopting digital technology has been accelerated by the pandemic, Thailand expects the demand for cloud and data center to grow robustly across ASEAN. With investments in the high-capacity broadband marine cables, ample space, strategic geographic locations without natural disasters, and advanced linkage throughout the region, Thailand will also prove an excellent location for hyperscalers in data business. Furthermore, the Thai government will also ease certain rules and that stifle businesses, such as regulations on tax and data protection. Today, we are witnessing the commitment of carbon neutrality getting stronger among the cloud computing and data services business. I'm pleased to share with you that Thailand is heading in the same direction, as the Prime Minister has recently announced in the COP26 that Thailand's targets to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Under this carbon neutrality plan, the Thai government will push forward the country's renewable power generation from 20% today to more than 50% by 2050. This includes solar, wind, hydro, and biomass that we have a lot of potential in Thailand, as well as import of hydro from neighboring countries. I believe this advancement will underpin interest from hyperscalers who would like to supply their operations with a fully clean energy. On medical and wellness, one of Thailand's most outstanding areas of competitiveness is medical care and wellness. Before the pandemic, Thailand medical tourism industry drew more than 3 million people a year, with consistent growth prospects based on high cost effectiveness of the services. The longevity, new norm of consumer behavior and aging populations in many parts of the world will also add to the strong demand and create a solid ecosystem for medical care services and innovation in medical devices and pharma industries, aided by the high quality facilities. Long-term residence visa program. The Thai government has been fully responsive to the challenges arising from technological changes and committed to ensuring that Thailand can move ahead more efficiently to attract foreign investments, enhancing innovation, upgrade our infrastructure and human resources, and continue to play a key role in the global supply chain. To achieve this, the Thai government is focused on pushing ahead with streamlining measures and refocusing investment-related rules and incentives. One important measure is the relaxation of immigration requirements for high-skilled professionals in targeted industries. Professionals who want to spend a workcation in Thailand, wealthy global citizens, and wealthy pensioners. Under the long-term residency framework, a brand new scheme to qualify individuals, wealthy global citizens, wealthy pensioner, work from Thailand professionals, and high-skilled professionals will be eligible for 10-year visa, along with other tax incentives, such as eligibility for paying 17% personal income tax for high-skilled professional and property ownership rights. It will also include automatically a 10-year work permit. Leveraging existing expertise in working with global professionals, BOI will be entrusted to manage this operation for this long-term residence program aimed at making Thailand more competitive in the global talent war. Distinguished guests, the foreign business community and the government have a long-standing friendship, and all of you understand the ebb and flows of Thailand. Right now, the country is embarking on a significant phase of reopening its tourism industry and also accelerating its vaccination efforts against coronavirus. So please help spread this positive development and share with us any advice or input you may have. Let me once again reassure you in supporting the foreign business community and facilitating investment. Thailand will aim to fully leverage the underlying strength of the Thai economy and continue to offer safe, reliable, and competitive global supply chain for your investments in both short and long term. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much, Secretary General Duangjai and Momlong Chayotid Kridakon for the welcoming remarks. We are waiting for the full presentation later on to elaborate further on these initiatives. Now, please, may I have an honor to invite Mr. Stanley Kang, the Chairman of the BOI-Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand, to give his responding remarks. Mr. Stanley Kang, please.
Good morning and Sawadee Krap. I'm Momlong Chayotid, advisor to the Deputy Prime Minister, and Ms. Duangjai, the BOI Secretary General, BOI senior colleagues, representatives from government agencies, members of JFCCT, and other members of the foreign business community. It is a privilege to be the part of this annual event. It is very much appreciated, and I always thanks again to the Secretary General of the BOI, Kun Duangjai, for arranging not only this event, but other interaction all the time. And that we have been done recently has been refocused by the pandemic. It has been about survival, but we have moved forward in a greater part due to using of the vaccine and policy which safely opened up the nation and its economy. Now we have the opportunity to be greener and more skilled. Economic recovery will be the key target that we are focusing today. In the preparing major topic for today, we at JFCCT have 4 drivers in particular. First will be keeping safe, but being economically sound. Second, a greener economic understanding about BCG, bio, circular, and green, and reskilling and upskilling to getting more technology into Thailand, and competitiveness and doing business easily and service liberalization. Let me turn on each. Keeping safe. Vaccine have been provided. That means that we're going to restart our economy to be open. And thanks for the Thai government and all the foreign community and all the people we are working together. So we did a great process on all this vaccination since Q3. And we do believe as the plan of the government by Q4, most of the Thai and most of the citizens in Thailand can be vaccinated. And then we need to work together with all the new policy and example like Thailand Pass, so we can traveling into Thailand with safeties. And second will be the greener economy, and we have the understanding about the BCG, bio, circular, and green. We have the opportunity to be greener, rather than go back to overbuild the tourism, air pollution, and other negatives. They are policy attractive to business. Third, reskilling and upskilling. Some sectors I need to learn how to reorganize the learning. For example, in the hospitality, reskilling and upskilling are most come from education and training, including the vocational training, and also relying on the foreign skill. Upskilling is needed for the Thailand 4.0 version. And lastly, the competitiveness and doing business easily and service liberalization. Doing business easily is part of the being competitiveness. Work permit and visa continue to be the area of concern for foreign and the local business, where foreign skills and unskilled labor is relied on. We seek a strategy plan for the reform, including fast-track reform, liberalization service is visual for the being competitiveness. JFCCT greatly appreciate all engagement and opportunities. I wish all a fruitful session, and again that thanks Bongrong Chayotid and Kun Duangjai. As always, JFCCT stand ready to work and do our best to contribute for the Thai economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kang, Chairman of the Foreign Chamber from the Joint Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand. Next, please allow me to invite Ms. Duangjai Asawachintachit, the Secretary General of Thailand Board of Investment, along with the PMO team, to give their presentation on the BOI policy updates. Madam Secretary General, please.
Okay, can everyone see this, the screen that I share? Yes.
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 All right. It's almost my routine to give JFCCT updates on BOI policies. Since we last met in December last year, we have come up with quite a number of policy revisions given the pandemic situation and also given the changing competitive landscape. So I'd like to start with one important, if I can move this screen. Sorry, there seemed to be some problem. Okay, all right. We have changed, if you still remember, the BOI has a scheme, the so-called merit-based incentives. It is a scheme that is intended to encourage companies to invest or spend on items that we think would lead us to more competitiveness, such as R&D expenditures or investments, advanced tech training, or supplier development, and so on. But given the fact that if we look at the percentage or the share of R&D expenditures to GDP of Thailand, we have set the target. We have always failed to meet the target, unfortunately. Currently, R&D expenditures account for about 1.4% of GDP. The targeted percent is 2%, so we haven't reached that yet. If we look around and look at our neighboring countries, of course, countries like Malaysia, they have already reached 2% quite a few years ago. So we're still working towards that goal. So the BOI, what we do, we then change or we enhance the incentives for projects that invest or spend on R&D activities. We upgrade the incentives. For example, previously, we would offer up to 3 years of corporate income tax exemption if people spend on R&D activities. Now we moved it to, we increase it to up to 5 years. So practically, let's say if, but the maximum would be 13 years because that is set in the law. So people have more chance to get CAT exemption for 13 years. And also, if you can spend R&D on R&D or invest in R&D, and you can reach the threshold that we set, such as the percentage or the minimum amount, then the corporate income tax exemption ceiling would be lifted as well. So there would be two major advantages or two major enhancement of the existing R&D incentive scheme that we have. And good news is after we changed the scheme, we have received quite a number of applications for the enhanced incentives, because we were quite disappointed during the previous scheme that very few companies would apply for the merit-based incentives. And fortunately, we have received a lot more. And before we came up with this scheme, we have also consulted with our stakeholders in order to make sure that the scheme would meet would satisfy the investment needs or the goals of companies. Another thing that we have done for the merit-based incentive package is that since the COVID-19 is a major issue, and we think that in the future we would be facing these new diseases more often. So we have incorporated donations to vaccine or drug development programs into the merit-based incentives as well. For example, if companies donate some funds to, let's say, such as Duangjai, which is a vaccine development program run by a public university, companies can then come back to the BOI and apply for additional tax incentives. So that's what we do. And also, since we focus a lot more on training, upskilling, and reskilling, we then enhance the incentives for companies that spend on training such as internship programs. You take on vocational students or university students and have a long-term apprenticeship program with them. The incentives that we are granting, instead of in the past, we provided only 100%. Now we lifted it to 200%. So that is the what we have done when it comes to merit-based incentives. Another thing that we have been doing quite a lot over the past, I would say 2 years, that is a scheme on productivity enhancement. I suppose that many of you have, some of the JFCCT members have already benefited from this scheme. What we have done in the past few years is that we try to incentivize existing companies to do better, to become more competitive. In the old days, people, if they would like to apply for BOI incentives, they needed to increase production capacity. If you just improve your productivity, you could not apply for incentives from the BOI. But many years ago, we changed the concept. We thought that improving the productivity of existing companies is equally important as attracting new investments. So what we have done this year, we added a few items. The first item is very much in line with what with the current government's policies and also what Stanley has mentioned earlier. We added an item on greenhouse gas reduction. So if companies replace or upgrade machinery in order to reduce their greenhouse gas emission, then they can apply for tax incentives from the BOI. Another item would be Industry 4.0 transformation. You must have heard of the schemes that we offer to companies that invest in automation and robotics already. This one is an enhanced scheme. That means for companies that want to achieve Industry 4.0 status. And what we do is that we also enhance the incentives. Instead of giving 3 years tax holidays with 50% corporate income tax exemption cap, we upgrade it to 100%. So provide more incentives to companies that would like to reach Industry 4.0. You may ask, what is the Industry 4.0? How do we know that the investment plan is leading to Industry 4.0 status? Of course, we cannot work alone on this issue. So we will be working with NSTDA, our research institution. They would set up a committee to consider the investment plan and also help monitor and give advice to companies that would like to transform themselves into Industry 4.0 status. The greenhouse gas reduction will be working with the greenhouse gas agency as well, because they need to issue the carbon footprint. We will use that as an evidence that you have reduced greenhouse gas. More issues, more measures to encourage greenhouse gas reduction in the BOI incentive scheme. So we also move to enhance incentives for some eco-friendly technologies such as CCUS or carbon capture, utilization and storage technologies. Although these technologies are still very expensive today, we also include other technologies that would lead to the same purpose, that is carbon reduction. So we hope that with this change in the incentive scheme, we would be able to bring about more investments that are eco-friendly. And also we extend our program to even the grassroots economy. We then incorporate the program for grassroots economy support scheme to include sustainable agriculture. We've been working with the Ministry of the Environment. We've been talking about the introduction of low methane rice farming in Thailand, because we know that in the future, countries such as the EU is introducing a scheme of taxes that would be levied on the amount of carbon emission from the products that we are exporting. So we need to get prepared to make sure that we can still remain competitive. We also changed some sectoral measures such as digital activities. This was a topic of discussion with JFCCT before in the past. So we actually incorporated some comments from our meeting with JFCCT. Our purpose is to make sure that we simplify the process, provide more flexibility and longer tax holidays. But the final purpose is to make sure that we build more Thai digital talents, which are today still scarce resources. We also upgraded some incentives for packaging sector, particularly smart packaging and sustainable packaging, and also packaging that contributes to circular economy. And another example is semiconductors. ML Chayotid mentioned earlier about smart electronics. So with the changing competitiveness landscape, we then decided to enhance our incentive for the semiconductor business, particularly large-scale investment, in order to attract more investment. As a result, we have been receiving quite a number of applications in the electronics, particularly in smart electronics industry this year. Actually, if we look at the BOI stats this year, the electrical and electronics industry is in the lead. It's the largest sector which receive the highest amount of investment when it comes to manufacturing. So that is good news. That is the investment in this sector is rising. We still have other sector-specific policy revisions over the past 10 months. I would not go into too much details. Another example would be clinical research. As you know, that with the pandemic, a lot more activities related to the medical hub are happening in Thailand. So the BOI would like to be a part of that as well. So we introduced clinical research, and we have already received quite a number of applications. Human resource, you talk about upskilling, reskilling. We also moved to take some actions. We have entered into an MOU with the Ministry of Higher Education and councils of engineering and science deans. So what we would do is to make sure that we could provide the right manpowers for existing investors and newcomers. Further details would be provided later on during our discussion in order to let you know what we can do for you. And also training grants. Good news is the BOI will be giving training grants from the competitiveness fund that we have. And we would like to make sure that not only that we produce the right manpower, but also to make sure that investors would keep on training their employees as well. So the BOI would be providing training grants. We have already come up with some guidelines. So if you're interested, please do not hesitate to contact us. And so I'd like to stop here, and so that we can have more time for discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary General. So next on our program, please allow me to invite the PMO team to give their presentation on the EV, please.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned, the area of focus industries of EV, smart electronics and LTR, I would like to have my PMO team give a snapshot in a deep dive on these sectors for the floor. Thank you very, very much. Please, team, can you go through for the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Chayotid. Let us spend the next 5 minutes to walk through the quick updates related to the electric vehicle. So why is this change? First of all, the Thailand has been further built on from the 30-30 visions to commit to create the demand and upgrading the production footprints. This would mean a new demand of around 725,000 of the new cars, the BEV cars being produced locally in Thailand by 2030. Number two is also refers to additional 675,000 cars of the two-wheelers production in Thailand. This would also relate to the spectrums of the additional supply chain that we anticipated to come together with that supply and the demand that include along the value chain, such as up to 40 gigawatt hours of domestic battery demand that we can foresee. The public chargers that needed across the country of around 13,000 units and for the publics, and also more than 100,000 of the private chargers. And this together would also upgrade the IoTs of up to 5 million cars being created in Thailand by 2030, which will create the support for attraction of the ecosystem. So that would be our vision to upgrade the hub. Right? If we go for the next page, how would this turn and help Thailand positioning? Thailand has been well known for being a global combustion engine vehicles manufacturing. We are now ranked between number 10 and 11 globally. And we believe that with the 30-30 aspiration, Thailand will continue to rank among the top 10 and 11 manufacturing. From our estimates, we should be listed as a number 10 and across the global by 2030, and will be number 1 in ASEAN production. If you go for the next page, what does it mean and what needs to happen? Over the last 1 year, working under Deputy Prime Minister and Chayotid leadership, the PMO team has been leading and on a few unlocks to ensure that launching this S-curve for electric vehicles has provided the comprehensive incentive and also policies across. And that would include the range of the demand stimulations, the vehicle parts and manufacturings, the batteries and infrastructures, as well as looking at the pain point for the EV impact that could be happening to the fuel, GHG, and other related industries. Having this in mind, going next page, we are actually coming up with the most comprehensive EV support that we'd like to share today. So the EV support would start by the number 1 and number 2, which is a comprehensive look of how can we incentivize and support the next generation of the OEM productions, both from the cars, the four-wheelers, and also for the motorcycle. This would range from the supporting the demand side up to $5,000 per unit, the support of the tax reductions from the BOI and also excise tax, the CBU import allowance that allow the car producers and the two-wheelers producer to be able to test the market at the competitive import duty reduction so that they can foresee that by 2024, the production can be ramped up. That would be the requirements for the number 1 and number 2. In addition, on the demand side, the government, which has, and the state-owned enterprise, and this has already been approved in the cabinet, will also committed to transition around 100,000 of the total fleet into the BEV per the transition. And we can foresee that for the next 2 to 3 years, that we will start stimulating the further demand from the government and the SOEs. Moving along the value chain, as we mentioned earlier, this comprehensive package also touched the other supply chains, such as the batteries, charger operators, and the ecosystem. So in the number 3 on the bottom right of the page, the battery manufacturers would also receive the sets of the incentives that encourage the local installation, such as the lower excise tax for the locally produced batteries, the local sales support, especially to support the gap from the import parity over the next couple of years. And the requirements that we required would be either the commitment to produce long-term the giga plant of the 8 gigawatt hour cell plant in the phase development, or if the producers can promise to produce at the market price after subsidy below the import parity from the other countries such as that are providing, such as China and Indonesia. Finally, on the chargers and operations, we also provide such a support. And then at the end, how is this going to look like? Right? We believe that this upgraded package from the EV package will be able to help stimulate the further production supplies in Thailand We already have a number of the companies' commitment demonstrated on this page, around 200,000. And given our 2030 aspiration, there are still room for additional investment, around 500,000 more. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to again thank you, the Secretary General, Duangjai, Asawachintachit, and the PMO team for the great, insightful presentation. This year, we have seen a lot of major initiatives, and I would like to invite everyone to look into the details to learn about these new measures and opportunities. So now, please allow me to go to the next section in our program. So we will open the floor for discussion and sharing on different topics related to regulatory frameworks in Thailand.
Yeah.
So please allow me to pass the mic on to Secretary General and the JFCCT representatives to take on the discussion session, please.
Well, thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity, since we have quite a number of items on the list of provided by JFCCT, and I understand that JFCCT has also prepared some slides to be presented to the meeting so that we can have a better understanding of the issue. So I would like to invite Stanley to provide some introduction to the issues to be discussed.
Okay, thank you very much, Secretary General Duangjai. I think that today we will focus on around five issues here. So first, I would like to introduce my team member, and I have my two vice chair, Queen Becky and Dr. Charlie, and also that our policy team that head by the Mr. Bob Force, and to go through our JFCCT topic. So may I invite Bob to run on our topic. So the first, our topic will be focused on the service liberalization. Please, Bob.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Punmeechaow, Duangjai, and of course, welcome to Stanley and all the other members of the foreign business community. So I'm just going to share the screen here for the presentation, and hope that you can see this. I believe what we will do here is we have 5 topics. At the end of each topic, we will stop, and Duangjai will, I believe, be a moderator for interventions from the various government agencies. We do not expect resolution of all these issues today, but we feel that given the importance of today's event, we can ensure that everybody is aware of the issues and we can work together on achieving the appropriate resolution. So the JFCCT topics today are driven by what our chairman, Mr. Stanley Kang, has mentioned. The drivers are keeping safe but being economically sound, a greener economy, understanding BCG, reskilling and upskilling, and then competitiveness, doing business easily, and service sector liberalization. So our 5 topics are as follows in this order, as you can see. I won't read them out again, but I will go first into the first topic, services liberalization. It is a long-standing concern that many, many years ago, some decades ago, a great event was done in liberalizing manufacturing. The Eastern Seaboard and now the EEC is testament to that vision. The fantastic automotive ecosystem is a byproduct of this. However, services liberalization stalled. So when we look at the Foreign Business Act, we have to look at ways in which we can unlock services. The services are the way of 4IR or Thailand 4.0, and they are the way to get us out of the middle income trap. List 3 has only been changed 4 times in the context of the Foreign Business Act. Most of those liberalizations that were done are really liberalization net neutral, if you like, because there's other sector-specific legislation. A year ago, 13 months ago, it was proposed that 3 parts of List 3 would be removed. They are listed there: telecommunications, treasury center activities, and software development. This was very welcome, but at this point, it's still being discussed.
Mhm.
It has been a feature of the Foreign Business Act List 3 that announcements are made. They tend to get discussed for a long time, and sometimes they stay there. They don't get removed because there are different views about whether they should be removed from List 3. List 3 and the Foreign Business Act is part of a regulatory environment where we might put into 3 layers. So at the first layer, if you look at the top row, we have the Foreign Business Act. At the second layer, we have the 1979 decree prohibiting professions being open to 39 professions being open to foreigners. That was replaced in April 2020 by a notification which kept the same 39 but put them into 4 categories. And then in addition to that, there is very specific professional licensing, etc. For example, engineers, accountants, lawyers, etc. So there is a limitation in terms of what skills can come in and what can be done. We have made a proposal whereby to recognize the time it might take to get back to pre-pandemic GDP levels, we should suspend List 3 for 2 years, allow investments to be made, and then in that time, focus on permanently removing certain parts of List 3. For example, logistics, engineering, and other. The result would be a reduced List 3, and we would have a slightly reduced List 3, but we would go back to the other topics in there. And so if we look at the envelope for economic recovery, it roughly looks like approximately 3 years, and that's why the 3-year period was taken. The advantages of this proposal is that it would stimulate FDI, it support business continuity, enhance competitiveness, save Thai jobs, alleviate pressure on the use of economic recovery budget. This would allow people to reorganize, etc. So that is where I believe the end of the first topic, the Duangjai. And before we get on to the second one, I'll hand it to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bob. The recommendation from JFCCT on this very topic is to suspend List 3 temporarily for 3 years. And with this suspension, it is expected to bring FDI because there would be no barriers in entering Thailand. Let's hear from the Department of Business Development, which is in charge of this Foreign Business Act. So may I call upon Kun Warawit from DBD to give the meeting an update on the current status of the progress of the removal of items from List 3. Kun Warawit, เชิญค่ะ
ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ Good morning ผมหลวง Chayotid, Advisor to Deputy Prime Minister, BOI Secretary General and Chairman of JFCCT, distinguished guests. First of all, I would like to give an update from the service liberalization under the Foreign Business Act. At the moment, 6 business activity is under the process of revising, as Kun Bob mentioned. Yes, the first one is telecommunication service business. Second is treasury center business. Third one is software development, and the next three is managerial service or service business, providing for affiliate company. The fifth one is credit guarantee business, providing for affiliated company, and the last one is space rental business. This is the list that in the process of proposing to remove from the Foreign Business Act, and is under consideration of Minister of Commerce before proceeding the legal step, issuing the Minister of Regulation. This is an update of a revision of the list. Regarding the proposal to suspend the list, I would like to inform that the suspension of the list, whether partially or fully, would adversely impact on local entrepreneurs. I think that hence, therefore, the liberalization of foreigner to do this kind of business, under particular, excuse me, under list 3, we think Thailand should take precaution step by considering both advantage and disadvantage. But however, Ministry of Commerce insists that we are going to carry on our mission to facilitate foreigner in doing business and keep on removing an obstacle from the law. And I would like to add something more. We understand that not many business sector have been delayed as we expect. To explain this because in the process of revising of the list, Foreign Business Committee needs supporting evidence that prove that Thai entrepreneurs are ready to compete in that sector. And also during the process, we are required to hold public hearing from various stakeholders to remove any activity from the list. So that's why the advantage and disadvantage of the removing and the list and the opinion of related party must be taken into account. However, Ministry of Commerce, we are pleased to welcome our proposal and comment, including with supporting information from various agencies to consider any list to be removed further. Thank you.
I have one quick question, Kun Warawit. The revision that is being considered, do you have a specific or concrete time frame for finalizing the removal?
The time frame of legal proceeding, I cannot keep definite period of time. I'm sorry, but you know, for the Minister of Commerce, after the proposal had been given permission by the Minister of Commerce, then we had to propose to the cabinet to consider after that in the process of legal proceeding step. We as an agency cannot give the definite period of time that we cannot complete. For example, as FCC mentioned for software development, last year we already proposed the draft ministerial regulation, but before we submit to the cabinet to consider, then some agency asking send a letter to our office to ask for the consultation. So then the draft ministerial regulation brought back to our department, and then we hold a meeting with various agency. But in that issue, we already it has been already resolved. Thank you.
Another question: do you plan to do all the 6 together as one bunch, or you would do it item one by one?
As a one ministerial regulation.
One by one. So then you would need 6.
No, I'm sorry. we will propose a new draft ministerial regulation contain 6 activities under the same ministerial regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from JFCCT side?
I think this is one of the things that we always try to push it, because we believe in open society, right? So a lot of Thai side is always worried about we are taking away the job. But our concept is that when we liberalize the service sector, we will bring more investment into Thailand, and that will create a competitiveness. In fact, we are trying to build it up. And also that we believe sooner when we start negotiation of the FTA with different regions, that will be one topic very impact on for the under negotiation between the FTA, between either Thailand with the EU or with many other area. So we can see that as the service open the liberalization open very fast in our region, example like Hong Kong and Singapore, they do attract a lot of opportunity, and then they do give a better opportunity for the Thais to learn and create a better job in that the country, in that area. So that's still a key thing that we know is challenging for the public servant, but we really hope that the high end, like Chayotid, that can really hear our voice, to take out all this barrier, will be much better to invite and then the foreign investment coming. So you see, we always say that how come we cannot do like Singapore, like Hong Kong? So how can we go make ourselves to make sure that we can go become the high income society? I think that's one of the things that to create a better income, better job opportunity in Thailand is service liberalization. That's what we do believe. Bob, do you have anything to add on this one?
Yes, I would just emphasize what Stanley has mentioned. It is very important, we feel, that we open up this economy for services. It does take a long time under the current processes, but the public hearing was mentioned. Kunwarit, can we participate in the public hearing?
Yes, we are welcome all comment from various agencies. It also includes JFCCT can provide recommendation or any comments.
In a hearing.
When I mention hearing, it can be in many forms. Yes, we may hold a meeting, or even you can send a letter to give an opinion. So it's not closed for any comment or recommendation.
Okay, I believe we look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
And also, I understand that DBD is welcoming input, particularly on supporting evidences. Because you mentioned, Kunwarit, that you have to do 2 things. You need documents, you need evidences that Thai companies can compete very well in the proposed sectors. And secondly, you need to do public hearing, whether in the form of written documents or in the form of verbal deliberation, like at meetings and so on. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes, we like I already mentioned that together with your recommendation or your proposal, together with supporting evidence or supporting information, then will be benefit to the process. We make the process is run smoother, since we have the evidence to prove that Thai are ready to compete. That is the point that we need to prove.
Could Bob, let me give you an example. For the items that the BOI proposed to be removed from list 3, we also needed to provide evidences or some supporting documents, like we already allow software companies to be 100% foreign owned through the BOI scheme. And also there are a lot of local software companies already. So that means Thai companies can compete quite well in this sector. So there is no need to protect it. And also plus, if we allow people in, what would happen in this sector? We could create more, we could facilitate or accelerate digital transformation and so on. So just to give you an example, even for a public company, a public agency like the BOI, we still need to do the same thing.
Okay.
Actually, we propose more than one item. If my recollection is correct, we propose 3 or 4 items.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So if it seems that the suspension of the whole list might be a big challenge for the ministry. But if there are any specific items that you think should definitely be removed, and you have supporting documents, you have evidences to show that there won't be any problem if it would be creating only the benefits, no harms in opening it up, that kind of thing. That would be facilitating the ministry in moving forward.
Yes, thank you, Khun Duangjai. We got it. And I think that it's always a target we are trying to push forward. We know it's very challenging, but I believe that our view and contribution, that we deeply believe that to create much more opportunity for Thailand, especially we are into the digital transformation. A lot of things not just new for Thailand, it's new for the whole world. We limit a lot of technology development. And due to the regulation, they cannot start it up from Thailand. Because a lot of things you need to have a good joint venture, good partner to work it out here. So I always believe that even we take out the history, whenever the foreign investor to come in, they do need to find a good partner locally so they can survive. So in fact, I think that this on the foreign business, that's just another challenging barrier for people's attitude and mindset, and not to make Thailand as a first choice to start it up their tech company or digital transformation. So yes, we have BOI previous, that's very well, but they still have to go through certain process. So that's not so easy to come in. So we have to thank all the effort from the BOI. But if the Thailand's regulation and policy can be much more open than that, I believe that we will be the nation to be more welcome all these future business to come into Thailand. And that's my short remark. And then I think that Derek from the Canadian Chamber has raised his hand. And may I invite Derek? What any issue that you want to present? Hello, Derek, are you there? Derek, your mic is closed. Yes, please.
I just introduced me my very I just like for a
Derek, you're breaking up.
Perspective, benefit and
Derek, can you repeat again? Because your internet is not well.
Is this better?
Can you start again? We can't hear. We didn't hear you what you say just now. Please.
Okay, I will send it perhaps if you can't hear me. But I wanted to suggest that we all, the Thai government perspective, benefit of the Thai business paramount, and I think waiting until a business is ready to compete on the world stage a useful paradigm for the 20th century. I would like to suggest that now in the year 2020, Thai companies are already competing on the world stage. And the fact that they are not forced to compete domestically is a disadvantage. If we're looking overall Thai society, competitiveness, I think acknowledging they are out of Thailand and what happened here will have a net benefit in the long.
Derek, you have disappeared.
Yes, Terry, maybe your internet is not that well connected. So maybe we can wait until when Terry have a better connected, and then we can let him to express his view there again. Okay,
we need to have more foreign internet service providers here.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I like to leave one comment to the DBD, Khun Warawit, if I may. I think for all the consideration, there need to be a specific time frame. I remember that we proposed 3 or 4 items before the COVID pandemic, and so far there hasn't been any resolution yet. So we cannot keep on delaying or dragging on, although there are hiccups on the way sometimes. But I believe that it would be useful if we have a specific time frame for the removal. At least people can see the progress. Okay. Mom Long Chayotid, do you have any comment to add?
No, apart from, we hear you, all the pain points, and we hope that the government has demonstrated that, we are moving in the right direction with the restructuring of the immigration policy. I hope that, all your pain in the, on the Foreign Business Act will also be addressed soon as well. As I also believe in all your comments that this will open the door for Thailand to become a much more welcoming place for foreigners to live and work. So I will do my best, with the Deputy Prime Minister to help to push your agenda as always. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Of course, the BOI will continue to be the gateway for foreign business to set up here. And particularly for the software development, that's why we make the scheme easier, more flexible than in the past. So I hope that with this revision, would make it easier for foreign companies, software companies to set up here through the BOI. Although we wish that it could be open for everyone, with no necessity to apply for BOI. But for the time being, the BOI is still the only solution so far. But we will try our best. Okay, let's, if you agree, let's move on to the next topic. I think for the 39 occupations reserved for Thai nationals that can be dealt with when we talk about work permit. Is it okay, Bob?
So we move on to the next topic.
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, just share the screen here. Just a minute. So our next topic is doing business easily, one-stop service, including work permit, visa, and some comments on LTR. And we start this by recognition of safe opening. And now we see that there are 3 ways to come into Thailand. There's the 1 or 2 nights quarantine if you're fully vaccinated from low-risk economies. There is the 7 days through the sandbox and 10 days for unvaccinated. This really looks like a workable, calibrated approach. We think that Thailand Pass should come to have benefits over the COE. There are some teething problems, but we believe that these can be overcome with the right dialogue. And we can see, obviously, that Thailand Pass has some features and functionality that should be useful in the future. Moving on then to work permit and visa issues. Work permit and visa is the single most referred to challenge in doing business in Thailand. It doesn't just impact the foreign business community, and it's not just about convenience or ease of doing business, but it does include Thailand's reputation as an attractive place to invest. It is out of sync with other aspirations for reskilling. There are some minor enhancements such as an electronic work permit. And although we're getting out of the main issues of the COVID situation, it does mandate avoiding people contact wherever one can. Many have said that one should not waste a good crisis. Well, in the digitalization of work permit and visa, we might have partially wasted a good crisis because we have not fully digitalized that area yet. So that is still an opportunity. In terms of reform of this area, we think it needs a strategic plan. These topics were never included in the old World Bank Doing Business ranking. They were not part of that. The work of the Guillotine Subcommittee in moving issues to cabinet may well bear some fruit. But many of us say that we will not reach Thailand 4.0 in our lifetimes unless the pace of reform quickens. So we suggest eliminating unnecessary processes, deduplicating, process re-engineer, then digitalize. Today, we do not expect answers on these things. There isn't time, but we would like to log them. We do maintain a comprehensive master file. We'll be delighted to engage in detail on those topics. And here is just some samples of the kind of issues. So first of all, if we want to change visa type, if we change the objective, it becomes a problem and people have to leave Thailand. If you want to change from tourist to non-B, then there is an informal way of doing it. If you came here on a special tourism visa, you have to go away. And currently, if you wanted to go away and come back under the limited quarantine arrangements, you have to stay away for 21 days. Frankly speaking, if you look at this with a lens, and if I plead ignorance about any details, this does not make sense at all. It doesn't make sense to send somebody away overseas who's going to be employed here, who could be a very good contributor to the economy. I would now like to hand over to my colleague, Kridakon, who's going to take us further.
Thank you, Bob. Chayotid and Duangjai, especially Duangjai, you have listened to us for many years speaking about this, but we would like to cover this once more. So I will cover the visas. Part of Thailand 4.0 and the vision also to attract more foreign investment. I would say the biggest obstacle is visa and work permits. If we look at the big picture, and I would say, why not allow this visa process to take place online and do it abroad? Right now, most of this has to be done in Thailand. Now, change of job, section 51 to 53 under the labor degree allow the change of job. It is quite difficult because from a non-B to a non-B, it's possible to do it, but very often the time frame that you can do it is too short. Right now it's at 30 days. We would suggest that that we allow a longer time for this process. Another area is from non-O to non-B. Our understanding is that is only if it's a Thai spouse, not if it's a foreign spouse. Again, if you could clarify this, and if it is only for a Thai spouse, allow it for all nationalities. Bob, next one. There's one category that I think is very important in the new world. We have young talents that may be born or come to Thailand at an early age. They study here, they learn the culture, the language, they know the norms and the customs of Thailand. This category today, when they turn 20, they no longer are allowed to stay under their parents on an O visa, but will have to be moved to a tourist visa. Especially during COVID, this has been very difficult and challenging for the families. What we would suggest is to automatically extend these visa to 1 year. This will allow them to at least spend 1 year after they turn 20 to look for a job, or to, like during COVID, to maybe allow them to do the study online. We would also like to suggest that this is done on an online process to avoid personal visits. Again, during COVID, this has been particularly sensitive for them, where they've had to go on a bi-monthly basis to renew their visas. There should be no reasons why we can't do this on an electronic platform. Maybe more difficult is to do the pathway to Thai citizenship, but we would still like to raise it, that maybe starting at the age of 18 or 19, that those that would like to continue to live in Thailand, they have the possibility to apply for a Thai citizenship. For an O visa holder, like I said, this has been very complex. And again, if we can look at short term, how can we help those that now would like to study or have the opportunity to study online, or for those that would like to come back here, that when they come back, they have the possibility to maybe stay here for 2 to 3 years. Again, this is talents that know our culture, that know the language very often, and that we are losing now because we make it very difficult for them to come back. Bob, next one. Next page.
Yep.
Another area that we would like to touch on is the retirees. Now, I know that some of this probably will be covered under the LTR visa, but still, for those that are on a retirement visa, it's talents, most of them. Very often they have worked for years in Thailand. They, again, understand the working culture in Thailand. They love the country and they would like to retire here. We should give them the opportunity to work maybe up to 20 hours. This would be in the same way that is done in the region, and not ask that they will have to exit from their retirement visa in order to do some, I would almost call it voluntary work. But right now, again, we are losing talent, and we are losing the opportunity for, I would say, reskill and upskill on this. Bob, next one. Again, maybe this is an area as a permanent resident holder. With the permanent residency, you are allowed, you've gone through a scrutiny and you are allowed to stay here for the rest of your life, but you still have to apply for a work permit. Now, if the LTR will allow for a 10-year work permit, definitely those rules should also be the same for a permanent resident holder. But I would say, in line with the region practice, it should not be need or required for a permanent resident holder to hold a work permit. So our suggestion, our recommendation is to remove it for permanent residents. Next one. 90-day reporting. We mentioned this every single time. Yes, the process is easier. It is an online process, but again, very often the platform doesn't work. If you fall into the picture of arriving between 7 days before and renewal, you still have to go in person. Our recommendation is to change this reporting to be only when you change the address. There should be no need for those that have a work permit and live in Thailand to have to report on a 90-day basis. JFCCT has made a submission on this, on how to do. If you would like to have a copy, and we're happy to share this. Well, next one. For rationalization, harmonization, and deduplication. 2016, we started by showing this when at the BOI session with Dr. Kopsak. We created a chart in 2018. It was updated again in 2019, in 2020, and 2021. And what we see is that there has been none, if any, change. Rationalization is about one visit only, a true one-stop experience for all. Today, it is not for all. a broader range of the user for OSOS. As an example, BOI promoted companies, they can use the OSOS service. Companies located in Bangkok can use, if they have a turnover of more than 30 million baht, they can use this service. But when it comes to the SME or companies that are not located in Bangkok, they do not have the access to this service. Why not make this available to all? We would also, we have many times raised the matter of separating skilled labor from unskilled labor, and I think we will touch on this later on. 24. So next page. Here you see the chart, which definitely you cannot read, but it shows the pain that somebody who applies for a work permit or visa has to go through. 36 submissions, and not only one time, very often you have to do the same document for when you do an application for a visa and when you do it for a work permit. So again, our suggestion is, next one. Our suggestion is that we do either cut, combine, or ease on online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vibeke. We'll move on to the next topic now, which is on work permits. The Foreign Employment Act was repealed by the Labour decrees of 2017 and 2018. There were some changes to the definition of work. This is a long, outstanding discussion. And if you look at the kind of things that the nation is trying to do in attracting regional visitors and regional headquarter type functions, then it is out of alignment. It is still too restrictive. For example, a regional company can be holding a management meeting or a board meeting. Some of the activity that goes on at that meeting is not work, and some of it is. It really shouldn't be work at all. The concept in APEC business mobility and reflected a little bit in RCEP, the business visitor, means that you shouldn't be having to have any kind of extra work permit to do the kind of things that are contemplated. There are some BOI promoted company relaxations. What we are recommending, and we have the detailed text for this, if anyone would like it, we recommend expanding to allow all activity which is really short of local employment. This should not be a backdoor way of getting locally employed. So there have to be some rules about that, but it is too restrictive still. So we think that the definition of work does need to change. In terms of work permits, this is a radical idea, if I may. When is somebody working if they're actually not in Thailand? Are they working? What if they're working for a foreign company that's providing services to Thailand? What if they're working for a Thai company, but they're not in Thailand? Even if they're being paid by the Thai company. What we suggest is that to overcome a lot of these problems, that the right to work for somebody in the process of applying for a work permit should be from the time that they get the in-principle approval. So there's a WP3 process. And from that point, we suggest that there shouldn't be any restrictions on the ability to work from that time. At the moment, you have to physically come back into Thailand to actually get the work permit because some of the documents are simply not available to be taken hold of until you get into Thailand. So this is the challenge. New ways of working. We're all working from home. We're working from the office. In fact, one of the LTR categories is a work from Thailand professional. Now, while that may be covered by a separate special visa at the moment, if you work from home or work from the office, there's a question whether you might be breaching your work permit. We understand that there are relaxations, but these are not clear, so we would seek confirmation that working from home is okay, and working away from the location in the work permit is also okay. I'd now like to turn to Dr. Charlie, my colleague, who's going to talk further about work permit.
Thank you, Kun Bob. สวัสดีครับ คุณดวงใจ หม่อมหลวงชยาทิต and presidents and colleagues. I would like to comment on some regulations that been burden for the private sector. one of them would be the 4:1 ratio that we try to discuss with the Immigration Bureau. Thing is, this is an announcement from the Department of Employment on 4:1 ratio. But somehow, as we understand that DOE has advised to the Immigration Bureau that should not enforce this 4:1 anymore. But somehow the immigration, in order to just renew the work permit, then 4:1 ratio is still applicable. But one thing that you can see that most of the SME who start up, especially the startup business, when they think about to employ foreign talent in order to compensate that the short of the resource here in Thailand, especially Thai talent, which is some area may not available. So it's difficult for them just to leapfrog the business and also to grow the business in that sense. So it may be part of considerations. And as we have heard from the Chayotid subcommittee, and I see from SDO colleague here as well, that we've been advised that the Prime Minister has been ordered to Department of Employment to look into it. Let's see how it goes. And in the same sense of the capital invested, by law and by the announcement of the DOE as well, that you need to have 2 million baht registered capital per one work permit. And if in case that you have Thai spouse, then it will be 1 million baht. But this also reflecting the SME as well, and also reflecting startup and also type of business, because Thailand is no longer just only productions based. Now we're talking about service based, and we're talking about digital industry. So please consider, because it's not many companies, especially startup, can invest that much at 2 million baht from the beginning. Okay, yes, Kun Bob. And as Kun Rebecca mentions about segregations of skilled and unskilled labor, JFCCT would like to recommend that we're supposed to segregate it. Otherwise, right now, what we have, we put everyone into the same basket. In order to give incentive or try to implement something, it's so difficult, it's become like a chunk. So if you look into Singapore, for example, that they have like employment pass, so that for skilled and semi-skilled labor. So what if like Thailand tried to segregate them and separate them into 2 categories of work permit? For skilled, one kind of pass or permit, and for unskilled, one kind of pass and permit. Then the government can implement easier rule and regulations upon the national security. Next please, Kumban. Yeah, on WP10 previously, now it's called W34 on emergency work, requiring, as far as we know from last year, that this won't be an approval process. It will be a notification process. But as we understand that we don't see any announcement to implement that, so we only need the clarifications on that. Bob, next one, please. On unskilled labor, we had a dialogue with Department of Employment earlier, mid of this year. And I would like to just emphasize it again here at the BOI meeting. So right now, what we have on unskilled, we have MOU type and non-MOU type. So both of them has different kind of documentations that they carry. So especially on non-MOU type, that thanks to the government as well to extend the deadline and expiry date to next year. So they legally here work here in Thailand still, but somehow there are 2 types of the laborers, unskilled labor here carry the documentation. Is quite confused. Next please. In order to address the problem that for unskilled labor that we see so far, thing is, if you consider some industry where it require like laborers heavily, would be one of them would be the construction business, where the job site is not the same as the office. When you require a work permit, then you register in Bangkok, for example, but you get the job like maybe in Nong Khai, for example, nearby the border. Then what you have to do in order to renew the work permit, then you got to come back to Bangkok, where you register and report that to the Department of Employment in order to renew the work permit. So which is quite super inconvenient to carry, mobilize maybe 100 of them just to come back to Bangkok to renew the work permit. We kind of propose for your kindness to look into like perhaps that they can renew at the in the province of the construction site is for just additional for 90-day report, we do it at the provincial office. So why can't work permit can renew at the provincial office as well? On the medical certificates, you would see that COVID now has been added into the list that the unskilled labor need to submit the medical certificate in order to renew the work permit. Some of the upcountry hospital cannot really do the PCR test and give the certificate that sense. So we kind of please look into the prohibited disease in the list, that whether like some of them can be reduced, because it's not just reflect the unskilled, it's also reflecting unskilled labor as well. Some diseases no longer exist in Thailand for 30 years already. Should have a look into it. And also last one would be, we only need clarifications a bit because soon the pink card holder, which is non-MOU type, will expire next year. So whether they have to go back to the country or what. And also in case of MOU type as well, because some of them may expire according to their entry date, but whether they have to leave the country in order to renew the MOU or not. This will cause a lot of labor mobilizations. So means if they go, they may not come back. Next, please. That would be, sorry.
Yeah, that's right. So we've talked about this previously, and the point of raising it here is in context. We want to look at the middle layer, which is starting with the 1979 decree, which prohibits 39 professions from being taken up by foreigners. We've identified about 7 or 8 of those of interest. That decree was replaced by a notification in April 2020. Same content, except that in a positive step, it made it more open and amenable to being taken up in treaties and other regional arrangements. So these are some areas that we had looked at back some years ago under the 1979 legislation, and in the April 2020 announcement or notification, as I mentioned, there's about 7 that are of interest. One in particular is accounting. Let us consider the very high standard of accounting practice that goes on in Thailand, and also the skills in the sector. Where are they being used? Are we limiting and preventing Thailand from being a regional services hub in accounting and other back office services? Due to these restrictions, this seems to be the case, and it seems to be the case that, for example, the Philippines and India are having an advantage on Thailand because of this. So the idea would be to look at a strategic plan to allow for both local and foreign accountants to work together to produce a set of services that could be effectively provided to regional companies and local companies who have regional business. Suitably qualified foreign accountants working with locally trained professionals and staff will be needed to impart the required skills and provide marketing, coordination, and quality control. This should be a useful thing to do. It needs examining, it needs a thorough look at the restrictions, but it is definitely impeded at the moment. I would like to go on a little bit to the guillotine. This is a project that JFCCP started on in early 2016 and was very enthused by the idea of looking at economies like Korea, Vietnam, and Croatia in terms of what was done. The early projects, 2017, were the Bank of Thailand with 400 recommended changes about FX. The report shows an annualized saving of approximately 1.1 billion baht. The Securities and Exchange Commission was another one where training on these concepts was done. The outcome strengthened regulation making. There was, in the now defunct World Bank Doing Business Index, there was an effort to bring Thailand into the top 20. And so Thailand was ranked 21 in the final publication, which was the 2020 publication, published late 2019. If you look at the 10 criteria, 2 of the criteria Thailand came in at 3rd in the world and 6th. Unfortunately, all the other 8 criteria were above 21, and they were ranked between 24 and 68. This index has ceased. It's no longer there. We will show a bit later some suggestions about looking at other indices for competitiveness. The point is that this was a good outcome. And while we should build on the strength of the result, in substance, our suggestion is not to try to be romantic about a defunct index and move on. The Simple and Smart License Project, the people on this call today and colleagues in the year 2018 contributed some 100, in other words, 10% approximately of all the license issues. We had a system there with the Agility Unit, and they were processed. So when that report, done late 2019, was actually published by the STO in September 2020, there were approximately 1,094 issues to be dealt with. And the estimated saving was very significant. Since then, as we know, I won't go into all the details, but the good thing is that a fast-track law reform committee was formed, and that had 9 subcommittees. Relevantly, 2 of those in particular, digitalization and guillotine, are driving a lot of these issues forward. And if we look at the annualized savings from the CDR report, as it's called, there was meant to be about 134 billion baht for the private sector, looking at compliance costs and opportunity costs. That is a huge amount of savings. And 9 billion baht for the government sector. It did not take into account a reduction of headcount or anything sensitive like that. I will hand back to Dr. Charlie, who with me is on the Guillotine subcommittee, and he has more intimate details here. Dr. Charlie.
Thank you, Khun Bob. I think this, you see the table here is the update table reported at the subcommittee in October last month. Here are the update of the number of 1,094 procedures that Khun Bob mentions. So this is according to the TDI report. So STO kindly organized, categorized them into 5 groups and represent here the number of the progress. Group 1 means the procedure that's been reviewed by the agencies. Some has been accept the proposal from TDI, some rejected, they say yes or no already. So 38%. And group 2 would be under the registration process. So it's not sure whether like it would follow the TDI recommendations or not, but it's up in the hands of the member of the parliament to decide. And group 3 is work in process under the subcommittee. Group 4 is also under the considerations of the agency, but with unclear methodologies and statement. So group 3 and 4, this is the focus group that we've been advised from the subcommittee already that it requires Prime Minister order in order to implement, because some of the procedure is really difficult to decide by the agency by themselves. So, and group 5 is no feedback at all. So this will push to the minister by issuing the letter and let them come back to keep the statement. So what we see here, group 3 and group 4 is part of the JFCCT concern, because some of the immigrations, work permit, and some of other ease of doing business in terms of foreign investment, it fall into group 3 and 4 mostly. So we kind of are asking BOI and also PMO to look into this group 3 and 4 in particular, because we need to move it forward. Thank you, Khun Bob.
Thanks, Dr. Charlie. Let us look at ranking. So ranking can be a very good guide. I always believe looking at the sub-indices is much more interesting. The World Bank ranking had 10 specific criteria. It did not include hiring foreigners or contracting with the government, two quite sensitive areas. So Thailand ranked well, as I mentioned, on a couple of things: protecting minority investors and not so well on paying taxes and starting a business. As I mentioned, from the 2020 rank of 21, only 2 of those sub-indices were under 21. All the rest were well over, from 24 to 68. And you can see, due to World Bank remeasurements, this bar chart shows the rankings for Thailand over the years. It looks a bit funny, to be honest, because it's really due to exogenous factors, if you like, which is remeasurement. Other rankings that are useful to look at are competitiveness rankings, and some of these are actually mentioned in the BOI's Thailand Investment Review on BCG, in fact. So if we look at the competitiveness rankings, the nation has improved in most cases. In terms of digital competitiveness, it's definitely an improvement, and that should go in that direction as well. The WIPO is the World Intellectual Property Organization. They have a GII, Global Innovation Index, just published, and Thailand has been fairly stable in that. We should see that improve a lot, because the Department of Intellectual Property has done massive things over the last 5 years to help make Thailand a leader in this area. So we would encourage looking at these other rankings and moving away from the World Bank ranking, which is no longer in existence. We would like to make a few comments on the long-term residents. So we got involved in this during a short information session in May, and more recently when the BOI kindly asked us to have some time to go through this. And so we recently made a fairly detailed response on it. We do not wish to be seen to be critical of a move that is going to have a number of positive features, but we do wish to be clear that with all of the issues on work permit and visa, which are going to continue to affect the majority of people, the vast majority of people, because LTR is not intended for everybody, then we do caution that this should not be seen to be a substitute for the kind of deep structural reform that's needed in the work permit and visa area. So we don't think that these are going to, these proposals are going to affect that. And we don't think that, therefore, it will have an impact on improvements in doing business easily in other areas. I think it's useful to ask, what is the objective of LTR? Once a person is qualified for the program, what is expected of that person in each category? For example, the hurdle of investing $500,000 US doesn't really do much in terms of national overall investment. It's a very good indicator of some level of commitment, but is it expected that that person would be influential in the board in causing much larger investments? Is it expected that they would do other things? Is it expected that they would impart skills? And in the other areas, are they expected specifically to do some kind of know-how transfer? We feel that the 90-day reporting benefit should, as my colleague Vibeke has mentioned, should apply to all. If the law is possible to support a change, then it should apply to everybody, not just the LTR category. We also feel there should be a right to work in all categories, and would suggest that rather than doing this by an automatic work permit, even if it's electronic, we look at the model of the smart visa, which has been operating now for 3.5 years, where there is no separate work permit. And that means that it takes out another level of processing. Just because something's automatic doesn't mean that it isn't going to have to be processed. So We are aware that in some cases people go to places and they say, somebody will say, well, show me your work permit. And the answer is, well, I have a smart visa, or I don't have one. And so there's misunderstanding. The way to correct that, we would suggest, is not to engage in a retro step, but rather to have an explanation and education. The next question, and it's in our document analyzed there, is what is really the target and committed work? Is it the S-curve? Is it science and technology related? Can an LPR visa override other limitations on what foreigners are allowed to do? Some clarity around that should be interesting. Startups need an examination of what is missing. In our materials, we have submitted a list of issues facing startups. When this was originally proposed, there was a digital nomad, digital freelancer category. That has really changed to something quite different, which is working from Thailand. And working from Thailand is really something that would require a fair bit of market research to make sure that employers are willing to do this. And maybe they really are going to do that. We don't suggest that they wouldn't, but it does mean that the digital freelancer category is no longer there. We have made some recommendations about this using a point system. And given that so many other economies are doing digital freelancer type of visas, this is an area that really should be attractive. They may not be wealthy people per se, but they have a lot to offer. And either as part of this program or otherwise, we would recommend pursuing that. So, Duangjai, I will stop there because that's the end of our topic 2. And I'll stop sharing for a minute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It seems that the list of items related to doing business in Thailand is getting longer, not shorter. So unfortunately, so it is our aim to make it shorter. I like to go through each item one by one, but not all the items. I think I would like to pick up some key items to be discussed at this meeting for the sake of time. On Thailand's reopening procedures, I noticed that there are some comments on that. So I'd like to invite the MFA if there is any response or any possible fixes to the comments, or anyone from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Good morning. My name is Somphop from Department of Consular Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand. I would like to put clarification on visa, and then my colleague will put some clarification on the COE thing and Thailand Pass. I thank you for your presentation. It's very good, very fruitful, and very informative. I'd like to pick some just issues that have been discussed before. Mainly since beginning of this year, visa regulation has been restored. Now the embassy overseas issues all kind of visa as before as the COVID pandemic break. Right now we're back to normal. We issue visas, all kind of categories, including non-immigrant B, which is I have seen that in questions. Right now, we have been simplified the way how to apply for visa, non-immigrant visa B, which is it just require minimum document, just like for example, in case of having invited to attend business meeting in Thailand, we just present the invitation letters, and then the embassy will issue visa to applicants. And of course, if you come to work, you will have to present WP3 or W32 right now, and then the embassy will issue you visas. So I think the process is shorter and not require any lengthy document at all. And right now we have introduced since 2 years ago, we introduced an e-visa system, which we have a breakthrough in the service by last month, because beginning of October this year, we have introduced the stickerless e-visa in 9 countries. in our 21 embassy consulate in US, in Europe, and in China, which right now the applicant would have to go to submit application themselves at the embassy. They can do it purely online. And then the information, visa information will have the synchronized between Immigration Office and the MFA. Because right now, investor and business person would not have to go to the embassy at all in this 9 countries. And by the end of this year, we'll expand our coverage into the whole European countries, mainly Germany, Italy, and but I don't have information on that. So I think the coverage will expand into many countries next year, and I think this will help ease any trouble in applying visa overseas. And I saw the questions about the non-immigrant B and non-immigrant O about the dependents, and let me answer, put some clarification right now. Actually, non-immigrant B visa, which is allow the applicant to stay in Thailand for 90 days. They have the dependent of the non-B is non-O, which is if you are a spouse of that particular person, you have a right entitled to stay in Thailand up to 1 year, up to the approval of immigration, together with the spouse of a Thai national or the parents of the Thai national. They are also entitled to get non-immigrant O from the embassy overseas, and they have extended in Thailand by the immigration as well. So I think both of the dependent visa has been issued, and I think for the business person who have the dependents, a family, they can apply for visa and stay with them in Thailand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kun Sompok.
And then allow me to my colleague from department from the Division of Protecting National Abroad to put some clarification on Thailand Pass. Thank you.
Okay. May I share the slide, please? Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I prepared the details regarding the schemes that basically the travelers that are coming to Thailand are able to enter the country. So I think most of everyone is aware of the 3 schemes that are basically exemption from quarantine or test and go, and the sandbox program and the alternative quarantine. I'll just briefly go through each one, and then I'll get into the Thailand Pass. So for the test and go, the exemption from quarantine, this is basically for the eligible countries and territories that has been declared by the government, which are 63 in total. The requirement for these is basically to stay in these countries, travel from these countries, but you have to stay there for 21 consecutive days, and then you're able to come into Thailand and have a quarantine for 1 day or 1 night, depending on your arrival. And once you receive that, you're freely able to travel in Thailand. Requirement for vaccination is that you have to be fully vaccinated 14 days prior to traveling. Accommodation is basically for SHA Plus or AQ. Insurance, there have been just a revision for the insurance. Expats working or living in Thailand basically can use the insurance that they purchase here domestically, or if they are working, they can use the social security card or a certifying letter from the employer to waive this requirement. The COVID test is basically required 72 hours prior to traveling into the country. And you will have another RT-PCR test upon your arrival date. These are basically the list of eligible countries and territories that are basically being announced.
Excuse me,
the slide is not moving.
And also perhaps Kun Sachai, since we have quite limited time and the audience is probably aware of the information, perhaps you could go straight to the
Thailand Pass?
issue raised on Thailand Pass.
Okay. Oh, yes. Can you see the screen now?
The screen is
but
not
the slide
moving.
move.
My right. Okay, it's frozen. Well, I'll just speak because I think there's some technical problems at the moment. Regarding Thailand Pass, I think right now Thailand Pass. Initially, when we launched the whole system and everything, I think there were some, because of the volume and the amount of people registering, there were initial delays and maybe some hiccups in the beginning. But at the moment, I think the system has been improved, and the purpose of the Thailand Pass is basically like a checklist for immigration and health control officials that upon your arrival to facilitate the documentation for checking. So you will have, the travelers will not have to face a lot of time or wait that long at the airport. One thing though that we've been experiencing, that initially the time frame for the approval of the Thailand Pass that was kind of discussed with the Department of Disease Control has been around 7 days. But a lot of the travelers that from the initial that we have experienced the problem is that a lot of the travelers that have been registering have been registered on the, for example, today, but then they're traveling within 1 or 2 days. So there were a lot of backlog with this issue. So, but at the moment, we have been expanding the team and been focusing on approving and reviewing all the documentations of all the applications right now. So we're nearly up to date with all the applications at the moment. One thing that I would like to maybe leave with everyone is that when submitting the documentations, a lot of the things that we have experienced is that the documentation submitted were not clear, or basically were not in line with the measures or requirements that were initially set forth. So that's another thing. And another thing is that once you submit, a lot of the applicants resubmit like 3 or 4 more. In doing so, it also delays the approval of the applicant themselves. So if once you apply for the Thailand Pass, give it a moment, maybe a day to receive the confirmation. Right now, it's mostly like nearly immediate, but in the case that, in the event that you do not receive it right away, please do not re-register, because it will delay the process of your because you will have the same name in the process many times, so it will delay the verification process.
Okay.
This is one thing that we would like to leave. And at the moment, due to I think some technical issues with Hotmail and Outlook, we recommend that you do not, the travelers do not use these 2 emails as a domain to register with the Thailand Pass, because a lot of the applicants have not been able to receive the reply from the system, because I think there's some technical issues between the providers and the servers. So you can use other emails, Gmail or other types, but Outlook and Hotmail we reserve not to be used.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Kun Suchai. So please make sure that you don't use Hotmail or Outlook as your email domains.
Yes.
So, and also please do not resubmit. Just be a little bit more patient in receiving the confirmation. Otherwise, the system will be clogged.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to the visa issue. Since there are quite a number of items on this topic, I'd like to perhaps focus on two or three particular issues. One is the possibility of changing the visa category or visa objective. and the other one is a relaxation of 4:1 employment ratio. So I'd like to invite the immigration to make some comments on the possibility of changing the visa category or the visa objective. Like, for example, from non-O to non-B, is it possible?
Thank you very much, Kun Duangjai. I'm Police Lieutenant Colonel Tanchanok Lomayanon, Inspector from Immigration Division 1, work at One Stop Service at Jamjuri Square. So first I would like to explain about the issue possibility of changing the visa category. I will explain in two cases. The first case, as you know, that the foreigner who enters the Thailand with tourist visa or visa exemption in the purpose of traveling, they can change the type of visa to non-immigrant visa by before 15 days before the stay permit expires, with submit all the required documents. This is for the first case. And another case that you asked for the suggestion, we have the solution that the foreigners are concerned about. They have to flying out of Thailand. But now, since from the meeting in March this year, which the BOI is the chairman, meeting with immigration and the DOE. From that meeting, we have the resolution for the foreigners who would like to change from non-immigrant visa, other type, to non-B visa. So may I share the screen? Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
So this is the new procedure from that meeting. This is announced from the website of the BOI. It's the procedure that if the foreigner they extend their non-immigrant visa other than non-B visa, such as non-O requirement and non-ED education, and later that they like to change the reason to the business visa, they can do it without having to leave Thailand. They have to inform the immigration to cancel on the existing visa, and then the immigration will remark on their passport, remark at the existing visa that this foreigner would like to change the reason to working to non-B to business visa, and then they can apply the work permit at the DOE and without flying out of Thailand. So I think this is improve the problems that with the COVID situation, and we also have the COVID visa that the foreigners still can apply until 26th of November, and it tend to be extend more since if the COVID situation still pandemic. So I think this is can answer your suggestion for this new procedure.
Okay.
And yeah. Okay.
Thank you. We have actually I shared a meeting with the immigration and the labor department. I think the questions that people have is question one: is this a common practice now? at every immigration office, at the meeting that we had with the immigration, is that we have agreed that the immigration would circulate these new procedures to all immigration office. And then people who are holders of non-O or any types non-O, non-ED visa can be able to obtain a work permit. Basically, the visa category will not change because it is another just one kind of non-immigrant visa, but the immigration would put down a note in the visa that the reasons or the objectives of staying in Thailand has changed to working. And then with that, with this note, with these remarks on the visa, that person can apply for a work permit from the DOE. That is what has been agreed upon in March. The question is whether this has become a common practice now at the immigration.
So the conclusion from the meeting for the new procedure, the legal department of Immigration Bureau has sent this conclusion for the new procedure to the immigration in the center and also in the provincial section. But it is normal for the new procedure. Maybe some confused, but we have suggest for the provincial immigration for this new procedure already.
Okay, perhaps the immigration can re-emphasize that these new procedures are now in place, so that when people go and ask for the change of reasons for staying, then they can so that it would be possible for them to get a work permit.
Okay, noted.
Yeah. And also this is related to the DOE as well. When they see these special remarks, then please make sure that a proper work permit is issued. The second question that I received from the floor is that, is it temporary or permanent, these new procedures?
Permanent.
Permanent, okay, good news. So today we've got good news. So any questions on this particular, because we have been struggling with this topic for quite some time.
Yes, Duangjai, I think Peter is raised his hand. Peter, do you have anything to add on this one, please?
Thank you, Stanley. Thank you, Duangjai. Not specifically on the changing the visa type, but I did want to make just two comments quickly on the 4-to-1 topic. Especially for a small business, it's quite typical to outsource certain services, not to hire people internally. So accounting or human resource services or IT services are very often outsourced to local Thai companies, thereby bolstering the local economy in a very meaningful way. And yet there's no recognition of that or consideration of that when a company wants to is trying to get a work permit for a foreigner. It's only the 4-to-1. No consideration or recognition of the fact they may have actually outsourced and promoted the local economy by looking for those services for their SME through a small Thai company, for example. The other point is I just want to reiterate on the topic of no work permit being required for Smart Visa, and perhaps under consideration the no work permit required for other categories such as permanent residents or the LTR. The idea that I think, as Bob mentioned, that we want to move forward and not backwards in promoting and understanding that work permit is not necessarily a required document for certain types of legitimate visa categories. Rather than going backwards and creating some workaround, it would really be in everybody's interests, not only in terms of lowering workload and overhead for Thai officialdom, but also for the individuals themselves, if further promotion of that and education of the private sector and the public sector, were done. Of course, it'll take a little time. It always does. I mean, just the same way that people now wear seatbelts and they didn't used to do it, or they don't litter as much as they used to, or they don't speed as much as they used to. It takes time, but eventually, with enough PR and enough effort, it can be done. That banks and insurance companies and others will recognize that no work permit is required for some people, full stop. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I think that's the direction we want to be going in, not working backwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I take note of the recommendation on the waiver of a work permit for LTR, because we thought that since we have been receiving complaints from smart visa holders that when they go and contact other government agencies, they all require a work permit, despite the fact that we have been circulating notes to so many associations and agencies about smart visas are not required to have a work permit. But still, we take note of that. And on the 4-to-1 employment ratio, perhaps the STO has something to say about this, whether it's going to be part of the guillotine subcommittee, the next item to be tackled.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'm not going to take much time because I believe we're already running over time. But specifically on the 4-to-1 ratio for work permits and immigration, the STO is working on a broad range of legislative reforms. We are an agency which we don't actually do the reforms ourselves, but we steer, we promote, and we encourage other agencies to follow the reform path, whether that may be set out in the National Reform Plan or the guillotine proposals. But nonetheless, apart from the other agendas which are on our plate right now, we do have a focus on the immigration and work permit issues, and specifically the 4-to-1, as well as the capitalization requirement for foreign businesses to requirement to hire foreign workers. Recently, in fact, only just a few weeks ago, the guillotine subcommittee, which the STO is serving as its secretariat, made a proposal to the Prime Minister that perhaps this rule should be relaxed. However, we do have a number of agencies involved, and we can't just propose a change per se without actually listening to the stakeholders, which means both the agencies and the businesses. We have to learn, we have to understand what the regulations were there for in the first place. If we repeal certain regulations, or if we make changes or relaxations to certain regulations, what the impact will be. We really have to have a good understanding of the broader picture. And I think Dr. Charlie mentioned earlier, if I may mention his name, that I think the issue now is that we realize that our labor regulations in Thailand more of a safety net approach, where we put everybody in the same basket and we regulate everyone, whether skilled or unskilled, in the same way. I think what is needed now, and we appreciate that, is that our approach has to be more directed, and we have to design our regulation in order to meet the needs and demands of both the business sector as well as the regulatory aspects, because we cannot ignore the social, environmental, and governance controls which may be needed in certain instances. But yes, the Prime Minister listened to those proposals, and he sanctioned the formation of a working group, a very focused working group, and we will be working very, very closely with the Immigration Department, the Department of Employment, and hopefully we will be able to come up with a viable solution. Now, a word of caution, though, I would not, I would not be expecting right now, in the very short term, a sweeping set of reforms. Our approach may have to be a little bit more incremental, and we'll listen to the agency, what we're ready, what is ready, what the infrastructure is there, whether we can do it. But we will be trying to move as quick as we can. And well, luckily, we also have JFCCT representation in the guillotine subcommittee. I think Dr. Shali is in the subcommittee. And so if you do have other proposals other than the ones already made today, feel free to channel those proposals through your representative into our subcommittee, and we will take those on board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kun Yotchat. I think that a lot of work still remains to be done. On this very topic, I think we have been discussing the definition of work for many years now, whether it covers business visitors or any business meeting engagement and so on. Once there was an announcement by the DG of DOE, I'm not quite sure whether that is still in place or being recognized. Any comments from the Department of Employment on the definition of work?
Yes. Hello, everyone. You mean WP urgent work, right?
No, the definition of work.
Definition of work. A definition of work is under Section 5 of Foreigner Working Management Emergency Decree.
Let's say foreigners who visit Thailand for business meetings, are they required to have a work permit, either in the form of WP or a full-scale work permit?
Yes. I know. Okay. According to the notification of the Department of Employment regarding the prescription of necessary or urgent work, this occupation have to be done within 15 days with a letter to register. Foreigner inform the register to get a WP3. No, WP24 with the register. Moreover, foreigner can extend the period of work for 15 days if necessary.
Even if they only come here for business meetings, they still need to.
Yes.
Okay.
Just missing. Okay.
It seems that the definition of work still remains an issue, because in practice, if people who come here just for business meetings, although they are required, a full-scale work permit is not required, but they still need to notify or register through the old name WP10. But I think the question here is that business meetings should not be considered as work, and therefore should not be required to obtain a work permit, either in any form. That is the request. I think it's the issue that we've been discussing for many years now. It seems that the same practice is still in place. Okay, we don't need an answer today, of course. It would not be possible to give it, but just would like to reiterate here that perhaps we should be looking at the scope of work under the Employment Act, because some of the activities would be done on a very short-term basis, and if everyone needs to be doing things 100% legally, it would not be possible, because I think the DOE office would be flocked by so many visitors registering for WP10. All right. Because we are running out of time, I don't know whether I believe that Thomas is in the meeting on LTR. Whether you would like to comment on the issues raised by JFCCT regarding LTR.
Maybe best to go through quickly the LTR presentation, so because then it would be addressed during that one.
But please be very brief, please.
Okay.
All right.
Good. Good morning, everybody. LTR, long-term residence, looks at 4 segments: the wealthy global, the wealthy retirees, the work from Thailand professional, and the high-skilled. And we want to attract 1 million people. Why that? Because we have 40 million tourists coming over to Thailand every year. So Thailand makes something right that every year so many people come. And that's because of the nature, the food, and the hospitality. And it's just a great place to live. And if we want to attract 1 million now to live forever, not only for, let's say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we need to give them something. And that is the long-term visa. We target the 10 years, preferential personal income tax exemption on income from overseas, especially if they are retirees. Inherited tax exemptions is important. And we also discuss the land and condominiums. What can we do that foreigners can own it? And of course, it comes with the work privilege, with the work permits, which was addressed earlier with the permit. So the next page, please. I think we heard today about pain points along everything. And this is why we said when we want to attract 1 million retirees, we need to put the retirees first. Like any company says customer first, here is retirees first. Along the value chain, when they decide to move, prepared to move, getting to work, everything until even managing their inheritance, there is a pain point along every way. I think you perfectly addressed most of them already. And we came to the conclusion we need to address it with a very clear service. And the way we want to do it is, next page, with a so-called one-stop service for LTRs. We benchmark different countries like Korea, the Middle East, and France, and these countries. How do they do so that we can set up the best? And then what we thought about is to bring it into one-stop service. And this will be administrating about 10 services. Number 10 is the attraction of the people. Number 1 and number 2 is all the government and visa-related things we just talked. And that needs to be done seamless. And I like a lot this online, what was mentioned many times, because it's too painful. And that needs to go seamless and end-to-end. The number 1 and number 2 will be overseen by BOI because they are the closest. Number 3 to number 10 will be then given to a private company who manage that, like, let's say, a business, if I may say so, where the customer or the retiree is first, providing financial service platform, transportation, communication, learning, healthcare, housing, lifestyle, and so on. So that is important that this goes seamless. And at the end, the measurement is 1 million LTRs with a very high satisfaction rate. This will be not that easy because 1 million people is a lot to administer. Compared to the people we have here, this is quite an uptick. So last page, what is required and where would we need some help? Again, to Bob's point, we have four categories and we cannot address everything. Like the startups is not managed here when I saw from the list earlier. So we can only answer a certain amount. The core targets are the wealthy global citizens. They should invest or commit 500,000 into an house, an apartment, and they should have about 80,000 per year available income to spend in Thailand. Wealthy retirees, very similar, only 250,000 in commitment putting into the country and 40,000 per year in spending. Work from Thailand professionals. This comes a little bit in 2 classes, the digital nomad. These are people who live in Thailand and work from Thailand for international firms, or corporate programs, which are programs for MNCs, multinational companies, who want to bring people from their headquarters in London or New York, which are expensive places to live, and bring them over to Thailand. as a pre-retiree program, for example. Here, the proof of income is 80K per year. And lastly, the high-skilled professionals in some of the target industries, which is about 80 or 40,000 per year. As you see, the 4 categories have 2 objectives. Number 1 is bring in spending power into Thailand. This is the spending of the 40,000 per year, which goes across the population in Thailand. Also the investments in the real estate. The second is the upskilling part. The upskilling comes in 2 ways. One is very targeted with the high-skilled professionals. That is how to upgrade the specific industries. But for example, the wealthy retirees are people coming broad from different industries. They will have also a work permit for half-time to work in different capacities. And those are broad, undefined. The number 4, high-skilled, is very targeted to the needs of the industries. So the help we want to ask, and when we had this 9 embassies, the discussions the last 2 weeks were, how can we best promote the LTR program? How can we pilot this work from Thailand type of thing? Here we would appreciate ideas. And yes, before the question comes, this applies also to the existing residents living in Thailand. So everything what I said here, they can apply to the same things. So there will be a transition from the old residents to the new residents. That was one of the main questions which always came.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Please, Bob.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Thomas, you mentioned that you were open to taking in feedback on this. We've kind of tried to do that, but none of these rules has really changed over the past few months. Perhaps we could organize a separate session because, for example, we've done a huge amount of work on digital nomads. It was in there, it was taken out, it's now put back. And the targets you've got for digital nomads with that sort of revenue, you're really looking at corporate people. And that's why I think you had working from Thailand professional rather than digital nomad. Also, you may remember at the May session, there were a number of questions about the high-level concierge service at the center. I think people are less interested about booking of accommodation and flights and things and much more interested in the regulations and dealing with the regulatory overhead and that administration. But in terms of targeting some of these things, we would be delighted to speak with you. We have sent in a very detailed set of notes. I don't know if you've seen those recently, but there are some pretty fundamental issues in there. Basically, I think we're taking 2 approaches. One, you've heard us on the general work permit and visa not related to LTR. We think that deep reforms on that are needed. But secondly, as far as LTR is concerned, we would like to see it work. We would like to see it function, be successful, but we have some recommendations about the specifics because we have worked on this. On the digital nomad stuff we had around the country, we did deep consultation with people who are actually doing this. I know we're running close on time. I'll leave that offer there if that's useful for the McKinsey team, etc. Duangjai, thank you.
Yes, actually now the BOI is responsible for LTR as mandated by the cabinet. So any specific suggestions are very much welcome because we are asked to present the criteria and details to the cabinet early next month. I will try to do my best to beat the deadline, but given the fact that we dealt with smart visa before, it's going to be very, very hard to come up with because you need to get an agreement with every agency concerned. It took us more than almost 6 months to finalize everything. So I have to inform PMO as well that it's going to be, we don't want to rush through things and then things break down because we need to get an agreement. Of course, we have to make sure that the criteria work, like it can be practiced and so on. we dealt with smart visa before, so we quite have a bit of experience that things are sometimes not as easy as we thought. Okay, and I have to agree with Bob. I think people are looking for sensible criteria and sensible compliance. That is the most important for people, and we shall try our best. So I will be working closely with JFCCT on this. I know that there are some JFCCT members who have very good experience with visa issues, like they are visa lawyers and so on. So we have already identified people who can help us on this. We try to beat the deadline as well. So for the sake of time, Stanley, can we, because it's already noon, on the remaining topics like digital transformation, I think the point that you are interested in is you would like to know what the government is planning to do in order to become e-government.
May I?
Yeah, please.
Yes, I think the very specific point is not about all the various digital related laws. It's really a very fundamental point. It's about transformation to become a whole of government plan for digital government. We have worked with the Digital Government Development Agency. We believe they have a very good vision and plan for this, but it's not necessarily being followed by everybody. So what we want to see is a whole of government plan, interagency interoperability, single sign-on, going through a process of re-engineering. So we're delighted to hear from DGA on this. Thank you.
Okay, any comments from DGA, please?
Yes, my name is Chalin from DGA. Good morning, everyone. May I present some information about the DGA? Here is the whole, actually here is the, may I change my slide, please? Sorry. Here is the Thailand digital government general plan that we plan for 3 years right now till 2022. I just would like to update you what we do for until 2022, because of right now, we plan to do the next plan that will be 5 years next. Here is the currently that we would like to do for the digital government. The concept vision, we would like to be the open, connected digital government with the co-creation with for the vulnerable public services. So for this, we try to target on the 4 angles. The first one is for the citizen, for the social welfare inequality to decrease the thing more better. And the second, we would like to enhancing the competitiveness. And the third part we do about the good governance, like a transparency for the government. And the final thing that we would like to do is increasing the public participation. For the first thing, we do about the enhance the public services to make easy for the citizen to access the digital technology, digital services for government. The second, we would like to provide to the entrepreneur that we like to do in business in Thailand, that we provide the portal that we call the business portal that we provide for the entrepreneur to start the business and do align on the 10 part that the World Bank would like to emphasize. And the third part that talking about focus on the transparency, here is we would like to focusing on the internal of the government agency, because of we concern a lot of the doing about the data governance to make them produce the quality data, also to provide the open data for the public system. And the final, the last angle of the target, if we do about the document, we have to hear the idea from the citizen. So in this part, everything of the digital services and everything of the portal, we would like to engage with the people to know something that they would like to share with us. Here is the kind of the overview of the digital development plan for 3 years. For 3 years, we cannot do everything. So for 3 years, we will focus on the 6 domains that we would like to focus. The first focus is about the education. The second is public health. The third, we focus on the agriculture. And the first thing, we focus on the social welfare inequality. The fifth side, we focus on the good governance. And the last one, we focus on the SME promotion. And the law of DGA, we do about the technical law that we support to the agency to put the services on the technical and digital form. So this is the architecture that we try to make it happen for the digital government in Thailand. You will see that on the left-hand side, the thing that we would like to emphasize and focus is we call the one-stop services, that the angle that we would like to provide by the customer experience. Right now, we classify into 4 categories. The first one is citizen that can access to the government services. Right now, we have the mobile application that the people in Thailand can access to the service of Thailand already in 24/7 all the time. And the second thing we do with the OPDC and another agency, right now we have the business portal that provide the license when the entrepreneur would like to open the business in Thailand. They can go to access this website. Another one, for the foreigner, now is under the development because we on the process of studying the proper thing to do about the foreigner portal. And the last one, we provide the open data portal already for provide the government data that provide to the public who would like to access to use and take the benefit of the data of the government. And if you see the center of the middle of the picture, you see that we also try to implement and development of the digital platform in the 3 categories. First thing is common platform. Second thing is internal, the government, we call the exchange platform, and the back office side also in the development of our plan also. That the picture you see that we cannot do only with the DGA, we have to deal it with the partner like many agencies in Thailand. The various agency will be collaborate with us to maybe make it the picture will happen for the fully digital government in Thailand. And the thing that you would like to see the process of we would like to do for the government services. Here is the common practice in 4 categories on the common platform, digital platform that we classify in 4 categories. The first one, we try to do the digital ID that we would like to make it happen in this in years 2021. And another thing is the service request and tracking. Another one is the e-mobile payments. And the last one is about the certificate and license. Anyway, for the government services and platform, we align to the guideline of the personal data protection and cyber security also. That is the update of the digital government in Thailand right now.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Bob, any more question? Nothing has been mentioned about single sign-on yet.
Yeah, very quick one. I think what we'd like to see is a time frame. When will all agencies be connected? When can we say we have a whole of government, digital government, which is not just a lot of silos using soft copies of hard copy documents. So what's the time frame for a whole of government plan? 5 years?
It's a very quite good question when you're talking about when we can be fully digital, because of that in Thailand we have around 3,000 department agency in Thailand, and the readiness of the agency is not equally. It means that we will try to make it the best, but it's up to the agency that if they ready for the digital, it can be go and connect to the one-stop services portal. But for the another agency that maybe have to improve more, we also have the plan to maybe help them to support them to make improve more for the next step. So I think that the majority services, we try to make it happen maybe in 3 years and 5 years. And maybe the last one, maybe we have to waiting until they are ready to improve themselves.
Thank you very much.
May I add that personally, we believe that with all the e-government, always should be top-down, a very clear Thailand policy, right? That will be the one of competitiveness, because government agency are the largest service provider in Thailand, right? So you know that not just a foreigner, also Thais. Every time, whenever we want to go to apply any license, you got to copy all the document from another ministry, go to another ministry. That's really a cost of doing business, and also it's not sustainable. So we really hope that the timeline can have very clear picture, and then we can announce and everybody goes that. So I have to say that is the whole world that we have to work together from top to down. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to say that currently every agency has to help themselves. And different agencies have different degree of resources. I give you an example. We would be linking our database with the revenue department sometime soon for the because when companies come to ask for permission to use CAT exemption, so far it is we have to sign a document, and then companies would use this document, go to the revenue department to get CAT exemption. We have decided to link our database with the revenue department so that the permission once we sign off on the system, it would go automatically to the revenue department. But to make this possible, since we have only 5 people in our IT department, revenue department have 300 people. So we ask them to develop API. Someone has to spend resources. So that's a way to go. So the problem is that different departments have different degree of resources. Whether they have the desire to become more e-government, different agencies have different levels of readiness. They may have the willingness, but they have different degrees of willingness. We just need to find a way out. But by the way, next year, the BOI will change the BOI certificate to e-certificate by the end of this new budget year. That is our target. So Stanley, we still have 2 items on our list. I know that item for human resource development, we are the one who put it in because we would like to briefly present the new platform that is open to services already. So if you agree, I'd like to invite Dr. Jirarat to present the new platform very quickly.
Yeah, please.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary General Kun Duangjai. And may I have the slide, please? I understand that we are running over time, so I will keep this very, very brief. Can I have the slide, please? Or should I share the slide that I have?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Okay. Okay, on behalf of the STEM OSS team that works under the supervision and the term of reference of NIXPO, the National Higher Education Science Research and Innovation Policy Office, I would like to give a short overview of the task that the OSS will carry out to facilitate the high-skill workforce development. Under this platform initiated under the MOU signed by the BOI, the Ministry of Higher Education, the Council of Engineering Deans, and the Council of Science Deans with 66 member universities across Thailand. There are 3 development schemes to be carried out. The main objective is to supply high-skilled workforce with emphasis on scientists and engineers to the industry to facilitate the company's development, research, and innovation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The scheme will include, firstly, the upskill and reskilling the company's personnel. And this can be done through tailor-made short courses that is requested by the industry to the university. or it can be done through a credit bank program, just like that offered by Chulalongkorn University right now. In this program, non-students can request to take any courses that has already been offered at the university for up to 6 credits in one semester. And then they can keep this credit in the credit bank, in the personal credit bank, so that they can use it in the future if the participant desire to take a further degree. This is already in effect. This is already carried out at Chulalongkorn University, and we hope to convince or stimulate or extend the program to the other universities. Secondly, co-creating personal through education programs, and this can be done through a non-degree short course program, like the work integrated education program that can run for 4 months up to 12 months, or it can be a master degree program, just like what is offered by the Consortium of Higher Education for Industry, which is supported by the Ministry Reinventing University program. Or it can be another specialized academic program under the sandbox scheme of the ministry. And lastly, the establishment of the Industrial Training Center. And to facilitate this, the OSS will firstly collaborate with the university nationwide to obtain the data. For example, the academic programs already offered at any university nationwide. And we will also gather the data on the number of graduates from the targeted field that is to be supplied to the targeted industry. And lastly, we'll make a database of pool of professors and scientists with specific expertise to develop the required workforce. And secondly, we will help initiate the company-university linkage and coordinate the courses and training needed by the company. And that would be in brief from the OSS. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jirarat. So I hope that this new platform, which is now already open to users, you're welcome to use. We have already circulated some information to BOI promoted companies, and we've already received some requests. We took the liberty of using the electronics industry as a guinea pig because they're the one who require STEM manpower. So we hope that JFCCC members can use this platform because it's a new way of doing things. Instead of letting the private sector struggle on their own to find the right manpower, we would like to be the go-between, to be the one who help. The co-creation idea is fantastic because now universities are very much willing to work with the industrial sector to come up with the right manpower for the industry. Any questions on this particular topic? If not, then let's move on to the last one, BCG. We have a representative from NASDA. NASDA is the one who's responsible for the BCG economic model because they are the secretariat of the BCG committee chaired by the PM. So please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Dr.
Yes.
Lily.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Lily from NSTDA, or I call it shortly NASDA. So I will go very quickly right on the point on BCG movement. So to support the BCG movement in Thailand, a science park called the EECI, or Eastern Economic Corridor of Innovation, has been set up in Duangjai Valley, Rayong province. And the primary objective of EECI is to connect research and investment across Thailand to support the BCG industry and large-scale translational and infrastructure to support technology scaling up and technology localization are being invested at EECI, and it will be open for service a year from now. Next, please. So for example, Sustainable Manufacturing Center, SMC, to support Industry 4.0 transformation will be open next year. And for those facilities that will be ready in 2023 are biorefinery pilot plants, phenomics greenhouse and plant factory, and also alternative battery pilot plant. Next, please. Okay, I'll skip that because that I refer. So to next, please. So to respond on how private sector could work with us in ECI and BCG related areas, basically we are looking for partners in the development of high value products from our local bioresources. We certainly also welcome partners who would like to localize their advanced technology for Thailand and ASEAN market. And of course, joint research and shared use of the infrastructure at ECI are also possible. Along the way, joint development of talents specific to the need of partnership is something to be expected from the benefit of both parties. And lastly, we are open to any suggestion from you in any arrangement that will create mutual and long-term benefit for everyone involved. And because of the time limit, I will also stop here, or yeah, and maybe please go to the last slide. So if you have any questions or suggestion related to BCG, or I just prop in the slide on APEC as well, because next year Thailand will be the host of APEC 2022, and APEC will be the great forum to showcase BCG as well, and we will have a large event called APEC BCG Business Forum in November 2022, and you're all welcome to participate in this activity, either be suggest the speakers or showcase your products and services. You don't have to be the APEC member countries, because APEC is very open to all international partners. So if you're interested in those as well, please feel free to contact in NASDA, INCO in particular, because we are international offices. So yeah, that's it for now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Lily. Any questions on this?
May I just ask,
Yes.
BOI has a significant promotion for BCG. I've read your excellent TIR, an issue devoted to it. Perhaps you could just mention a couple of key points of the BOI promotion.
Yes.
Of BCG.
In fact, the BCG concept has been embedded in the BOI scheme for such a long time. We have given extra focus on agro-related activities for such a long time. And with the BCG economy concept, we then enhance additional activities. That means we often came up with new categories that we have identified that are related to the BCG concept, such as currently we are trying to add or enhance the incentives on the existing categories that have incorporated technologies that are related to circular economy or green technologies, such as CCUS. Or give you an example, currently, if someone would like to invest in cold storage or cold chain, they are required to use eco-friendly freezing agents. We look at the global warming potential of the chemicals that the company would be using. So these concepts have been creeping into the BOI scheme more and more. And recently we announced the greenhouse gas reduction measure in order to help the business to help us in achieving the commitment under Thailand's commitment under UN on reducing greenhouse gas by 20% before by 2030. And at COP26, the Prime Minister announced an even more audacious target. So the BOI scheme, we try to, but since these are related to technologies, of course, we need to have technical input. So we seek out, we reach out for comments or recommendations from agencies like NASDA. I just talked to Dr. Narong that perhaps NASDA could help identify technologies that we should be promoting in order to support BCG technologies. BCG economy. Okay. All right. Well, it is already almost 12:30, almost 12:30, and there are many issues on the plate, and I'm sure that we still need to work even harder in the future if to make Thailand competitive, because there seem to be quite a number of compliance and regulations, compliance and all these things. I forgot to mention when you talk about digital nomads, we originally intended to include that into the smart visa scheme that we intended to revise before LTR scheme came along. So we kind of put the revision on hold, waiting to see the finalization of LTR. But we have one big problem. Digital nomads who don't have employers in Thailand, still they need to that is something to do with Foreign Business Act. So that's why we put it on hold, since we don't want people to be here illegally. Although the concept is great because there are already a lot of digital nomads in Thailand. But I believe that the digital nomad in LTR, I'm not quite sure whether the term refers to people who don't have employers anywhere, whether they refer to people who are self-employed or who are freelancers. Actually, we use the term freelancers in the smart visa scheme when we were thinking about this. But that is something that needs to be explored further. We need to make sure that things that we do can be practiced legally. We are willing to improve things to make sure that we would remain competitive, and we always welcome your suggestion. So before the closing the session, I'd like to invite Mamlong Chayotid. Perhaps you'd like to give some remarks before we close the session.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary General. And thank you, Chairman Stanley and Bob, for a really candid exchange this morning. And thank you for pushing us and trying to make us better. Obviously, I'd just like to make a few distinctions. I hope this morning you will see the government focus on trying to make Thailand better, especially trying to address the immigration issues and immigration pain points through the LTR scheme that has come out. But I just want to draw one distinction. When you said you don't really care about concierge service, it's not a concierge service that you go to Thailand Elite. Okay, what we're trying to do here is really to address all your pain points. The letter that Stanley sent to the Deputy Prime Minister about navigating the living in Thailand, how difficult that is, dealing with all the different agencies. If you look at the ecosystem that we try to put together to address in the one-stop service that BOI is going to be co-working with the private sector, will address all those pain points and also help to navigate a better living with hassle-free in Thailand. So I hope this is a step in the right direction. I understand we cannot address everything, but hopefully the 90 days reporting, the 4-to-1 and all of this will be addressed as a result of the LTR. And, I hope the LTR will be a success, and all of the existing guests of our countries who are already living here are all very welcome to migrate to the LTR scheme, for the ease of living here in Thailand. So I hope this is a small first step to convince the country and the government and all the stakeholders that Thailand it is changing in the right direction, and hopefully will be fully liberalized with all the FBAs issues that you have as well. So on the behalf of the PMO and the Deputy Prime Minister, I think we stand at the ready to work with you to help make Thailand a better place to live and work in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mamlong Chayotid. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating in this meeting today, and we would call a series of meetings in the near future in order to finalize at least the LTR criteria before we present them to the cabinet, and also other issues that are important to our foreign business community here. So again, thank you very much for being so supportive all the time and being patient with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
See
very
you all
much.
soon.
Thank you.
ค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you. Bye bye.
สวัสดีครับ
Thank you. Bye bye.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.